It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. My guest today is Mike Capone, CEO of Qlik. Mike leads Qlik's mission to create a data-literate world, one where people, businesses, organizations, and governments tackle their most complex challenges with data. Prior to Qlik, Mike was the COO of Meta Data Solutions, a publicly traded provider of SaaS analytics to the healthcare, life sciences, and pharma markets. Before that, Mike held senior leadership positions at ADP, including Corporate Vice President of Product Development, CIO, and SVP General Manager. Mike holds a BS degree in computer science from Dickinson College and an MBA from Pace University. Mike Capone, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you, Brent. Super excited to be here.
It's great to have you here. And we're recording this just a few days before the holidays. This will actually come out early in 2020, but I hope you're getting plenty of Christmas cheer and enjoying that with your family. We'll all be taking hopefully a little bit of time off for Christmas soon.
Hopefully.
Well, let's start with the family questions. And we always like to talk a little bit about the early years to get started. Mike, tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
Sure, Brent. So I'm a New York City boy, born and raised. I was
Awesome.
Actually born in the Bronx. It's sort of my signature thing, the last name like Capone. You can imagine New York City.
You don't get asked that question at all, right?
Never. I literally was in Singapore last week, and they asked me if I was related to Al Capone. So
oh my gosh, I love
apparently
it.
it's world renowned, but always in and around New York City. I lived in Europe for a while, which is where I met my wife.
He was Chicago, wasn't he? Or was he New York? I think he was. So you could just say, no, that's the Chicago Capones.
No.
We're the Bronx Capones.
So we can get into this. He's my grandfather's cousin. The short story is that the honest, wholesome Capone stayed in New York City, and then the ones that were little shadier
on the gangster side
moved to Chicago.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great story.
Yeah, so we stayed straight here on my side of the family.
That's great.
But grew up around New York City, in New York, the Bronx, and then ultimately in the suburbs of a town just outside of New York City. So that's my roots, and I'm a global guy. I travel all over the world. My wife is French, and I go there a lot. But you know what? Like New York City will always be home for me.
That's great. Brothers and sisters growing up. What was your early family life like? What did mom and dad do?
Yeah, two younger sisters, both very successful, family-oriented folks, and we're still all very, very close. I'll see them both at Christmas. And I think the most fun thing about my family was my dad. So I grew up in technology, and at one point in my career, I was the CIO of a big technology firm, ADP, which was a $12 billion tech firm. Yeah. My father was one of the first people ever to carry the title of Chief Information Officer way back when it wasn't even a thing. Oh. And he worked for the retail company, JCPenney, which was a much bigger deal back then than they are now. They were, before Walmart and Kmart. Like I
think they were on the Dow 30 at one point in time, weren't they? In Dow
Probably.
Yeah.
It was Sears and JCPenney. So he inspired me a lot, and I do credit him with where I am today, because he really put me on a path and challenged me to be something, and I owe him everything for that.
Was he a college grad?
He was, but he's a guy, typical sort of second generation immigrant. Grew up on welfare, didn't have a lot growing up, lied about his age to get into the military so he could support his family. Yeah, that happened a lot. So I think he was probably 16 or 17 when he went into the Marines. and that's how he supported himself, and he would send money back to his mom. His mom was a single mom, and but he's super smart. Went to Stuyvesant High School in New York City with skip grades, but just didn't have the means. And so going to the military was going to do that. When he got out, that's when he started working in the mailroom. I went to school at night, got his accounting degree, worked his way up, and then one day, not JCPenney, Standard Oil, the company he was working for at the time, said, "Hey, we just bought a computer. We don't really know what to do with it. We're going to give everybody this test. Yeah, give everybody a test and see if they had the aptitude to program." And scored off the charts on that. They sent him to school at IBM, and rest is history.
That's great. Mom stay at home, or did she work professionally as well?
No, mom was a stay at home. Us three kids were a handful.
Awesome. Any other early inspirations, coaches, teachers, other folks that you looked up to, family members?
Well, it's I had a lot of great support. So I have to say I'm super lucky in that I had a very intact family, big extended
Italian family.
Yeah, right? Italian and Irish. So I had the best of both.
Oh my gosh. I just saw The Irishman the other night. So
don't ruin it for me. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh gosh, I won't. You must though. I had to see it in 2 pieces though. It's 3.5 hours. It's very long, but it's on Netflix, so you can bust it up a little bit. So Irish Italians, that's great.
That's great. Yeah, people talk about the Italian mafia, but the Irish mafia was pretty tough.
Oh yeah. I had no idea. I mean, as I said, I won't spoil anything for you, but apparently this is based on a true story. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think it's probably very true.
Were you a good student in school, Mike?
You know what? I was okay. I was a persistent overachiever, so I was one of those kids. I would ace all the standardized tests. I would go in and I would do really well, and then I'd have all my teachers scratching their heads about why I didn't do better in
you were probably bored.
Huh? I was a little bit bored.
You weren't challenged.
And I like sports, and I just didn't apply myself the way I should. And then sort of when I got out of it's always the same thing. Like last year of high school, I did really well, and then got into college, and I did it's sort of slow start, did well in college. But I'm probably one of those people who's a little bit more street smart. Sure. In applying things, and intellectually, I'm really good at figuring out standardized tests, but I was never the teacher's pet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I got it. And what about kind of entrepreneurial things? Or let's go back to sports. You mentioned sports. What sports did you play?
So I started out playing, the ultimate Pop Warner football, which was many, many years of that. I was a skinny little kid, so I used to get knocked around the field a lot. But it was great character building for me. I had a lot of fun doing it. Did that for many, many years.
Did you play receiver or tight end, or what was
No, I was a lineman, which was crazy.
Lineman. Oh my gosh.
I was getting, I was a center, right? So I was snapping the ball, and they liked me because I was good at it. I don't know how many skills you need to do it. I think what I was good at was like being the guy across from always the biggest guy on the other side of the field, which was the nose tackle.
That's
for the
what
other
they put on the center, right?
Yeah, so I was basically the punching bag, but I somehow managed to sacrifice myself. I did end up with a concussion at one point, so gosh. But that back then, those are in the days when, it was just you practiced at 110 degrees in the heat, the coaches would grab you by the helmet and shake you. So that was character building in a way.
Imagine.
Now,
any favorite coach that you had, or anyone that shared some specific inspirations with you during those years that you recall?
Well, what was great? So my father was this like amazing businessman, and he had a big job. He traveled a lot, but he always found time to coach my football games, my basketball games,
nice.
And somehow he'd always get home. Like he traveled a lot, but when I had a big game, or he'd always be there, and that inspired me as a father, right? Because now I have a 12-year-old, and I kind of think about things the same way. I had another coach,
role model.
Yeah, I had another coach who was a New York City detective, who was. He's the guy who would grab my helmet and shake me around, but he toughened me up to the point, where it was kind of like, life is hard, and get back out on the field and dust yourself off and play the game, which is it's a good skill to have. I think next, there is something to be said for kind of the next generation being a little bit softer because they didn't have to go through those exercises.
That's true. What kind of or were you involved with any entrepreneurial things growing up?
Not not really. Sports and girls, I think, were my main.
Well, you had to have some
activity.
pocket money to support those things, though.
I
right?
did every job known to man. I mean, I guess if working at Dunkin' Donuts is entrepreneurial, then I was a giant entrepreneur. But
was that high school?
That was high school. The most fun job I had in high school, I did a bunch of stuff working in retail stores, but one summer I worked. My girlfriend at the time, her dad was connected to the construction industry, and they got me a job working as what they called a wire lather, but it was essentially somebody who lays down steel on skyscrapers while they're building them before they pour concrete. And so I got to work on the World Financial Center, which is that big set of buildings across from what used to be the World Trade Center. Now is the Freedom Tower. American Express is there. So whenever I drive by that, I'm like, I tell my daughter,
I was a part of that.
I built that. Yeah.
That's great. Were you up on the girders and going up high? Oh my gosh.
I was, it was funny because my first few weeks I was pretty terrified. I don't love heights, and then you just kind of get used to it. But that was pretty good, and it was crazy money for me at the time because it was union, and I was like, hey, maybe I don't need to go to college anymore. Which my father put a quick stop to that. Go back to college.
So there was an inspiration there. How'd you go about picking your path? What college you go to, and how'd you decide on a major?
That was, I would say, the inspiration / persistence of my father. I did not want to be a computer science major. I say that, and I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people who count on me to run a tech company now.
Right.
But I loved the arts. Like I loved history, political science, and so I wanted to go to school and be a history major. My father's point of view was that's awesome, but you're not living at home for the rest of your life. So, unless you plan on going to law school or doing something, you should get a computer science degree as long as I'm paying for college, which he did. And so I did both. So I got a major in computer science, a minor in history. I went to a school that was very liberal arts focused, but had a good science program. Did both, graduated with a computer science degree. But learned to be articulate and read and write and be reasonably well spoken, I think. But you know what, damn, my father was right. So the only job I could get coming out of college was $25,000 a year job programming at a company called ADP, which I ended up staying there for 26 years.
Got it. So ADP was your first job. Did you get some early leadership responsibilities there?
I was sitting in a cube writing COBOL and assembler code. It was dark days.
Very focused.
For me, it was. Right. I was like, what have I done myself to? There's no at the time. Programming and coding is much different today than it is with Agile.
I remember doing Fortran cards when I was in college. So that's how old I am. But you were maybe one step removed from that.
You said it, man. So I'd love to be doing that today. It's fun, but I was like sitting in a cube with a bunch of manuals, and then I quickly volunteered. Said, you know what, this is awesome, but it's not for me. And that led me to get into more like package software implementations. So like the SAPs and the Oracles and things like that. And that was fun because that was more business oriented, and I felt like I was contributing a lot more. So that was where my career really took off.
Do you remember the first time you started managing people, Mike?
Yeah, I was about 4 years in to my career, and they gave me a team of 3 people to test me out. I was pretty ill-equipped to be a manager at the time, and working in IT at the time, there wasn't a lot of training. So
were they coders as well? I mean, was it kind of the job you had before, or were they folks that had been there a while? What was kind of the extent of your management?
It was kind of weird because some of them were sort of my age and coders. One of them was significantly older than me, like 40. The best thing that happened to me was I had a really good mentor back then. Guy, his name, I'll never forget his name, George Papiccioli, good Italian guy. I'd been around the block a few times, and he was a guy I could just call on. And that's how you get this stuff done. You just find somebody who can mentor you. And I learned on the job, and there was bumps, but eventually got there.
What were some of the lessons he taught you in those early days, if you recall?
You have to lead from the front, right? So, it's even with a small team like that, that's a lesson I've taken with me from the first day I managed all the way to now where I'm the CEO of a company. But you need to be seen. You need to spend time with people. You need to explain what you're asking them to do, and you need to be willing to do yourself what you're asking them to do. And that's the best lesson I ever learned.
Yeah. Well, you've had just a really outstanding career, worked across a number of different companies. Tell us a little bit about your career path. So ADP was about 10 years, and then what?
Well, ADP was actually, believe it or not, this is going to sound shocking to anybody in today's world, but ADP was 26 years.
Oh, 26. Oh my
26
gosh.
years.
Wow.
But
wow.
Very, very famous HR person that I know, who actually I had lunch with 2 days ago, believe it or not.
Yeah.
He told me, it's better to have different careers in the same company than the same career in different companies.
That's true.
And it was brilliant. And ADP, they were so good to me. I worked hard, but they gave me opportunities. So just when I was at a level where I was getting bored, there was always another opportunity. And one of the lessons there is I volunteered for stuff. So when things are going sideways on a big project, I remember there's a big ERP implementation going the wrong way, and I volunteered to take it on and turn it around. And fortunately, I did. And but and I was able to rotate from sort of classic IT jobs out to general management jobs, back into product development, and ultimately to CIO. And that was great. And it's a phenomenal company. It's one of the greatest companies in the world. They've been around for a really long time, very consistent results, and I'm still very friendly with my former boss, the CEO there.
And then you moved to a COO position, if I'm not mistaken, at Metadata, right? Was that the next job after leaving there?
That's right, Brent. So that was great. So 26 years at ADP, all good. It was, I was getting kind of up there, and in tenure. So did I want to spend the rest of my life in one industry? And this was a chance for me to branch out. Metadata, cloud technology for clinical trials, life sciences companies. Really interesting work. So the ability to bring technology and data science into the world of drug development and try to make the world a better place, partnering with companies like J&J and Pfizer and Novartis. And I loved that job because it gave me a chance to learn a new industry, but also, to really directly or indirectly impact people's lives.
Yeah, cool. And stepping into the COO job was a very different role, right? From the CIO you'd been in before. How did you kind of adjust to that change?
Well, it was definitely interesting on a number of fronts. Fortunately, I had a general management job at ADP in between my sort of corporate IT job and my CIO, CTO job. So I had some experience running, I'd say a large P&L inside of a really, really large company, but that's not the same as being COO of an entire public company.
Sure.
And it was all on me, right? So unlike ADP, where I had one P&L, which was just a small piece of a giant thing, at Metadata, like what happened in my space determined how the company was going to do. So again, hire great people. I hired a great CTO, great CMO, great head of sales. Went and then sought advice from some people that I really admired on how to do things, and the two founders were there, and they gave me a lot of latitude and support to be successful. And in 3 years, with that company probably went from 270 million in revenue up to like 550 or so in revenue. Had a great partner. The CFO there was a great partner of mine as well. So it's all about the people you surround yourself with, and your willingness to learn on the job and be open to doing things differently.
Absolutely. And you're coming up on your second year anniversary as the Qlik CEO. How did that come about? Were you recruited into that role, or was that an industry connection that you have?
It was a former colleague of mine at ADP popped up. I hadn't heard from him for a while, but we were pretty close when we worked together at ADP. He was an entrepreneur whose company ADP had bought, and he hung in for a while, but then he decided he didn't want to be part of the big company machine anymore. He wanted to go back. So he popped up as the CEO of a small company called Frontline Education, which is out here in the Philly area, actually. And he called me and said, hey, the private equity firm that owns my company is looking for a CEO of this company, Qlik, and I think you'd be perfect.
Awesome.
And I said, well, I have a job, but he said,
and I'm having fun.
Yeah. And he said, don't you want to be CEO? And also, same old story, like meet with this gentleman. His name's Orlando Bravo. There's just a big feature article written on him. He's one of the founders of Thoma Bravo, the company. Super awesome man, like big philanthropist, very smart, but also very charming. Right? So, and also he gets what he wants. So we met. He put the squeeze on me, and he really made a compelling case, and the rest is history.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a little bit about Qlik, number of staff, kind of current operations, and what you folks do.
Yeah, we're sort of a full data platform and analytics company. So Qlik's an awesome company. It was founded in Sweden about 20 years ago. It's got this really unique perspective on the world, very socially responsible, but interesting people. The city Lund in Sweden, where it was founded, just big university education system. Some really smart people came up with just technology that did two things. One is they had some interesting algorithms and technology that brings disparate data sources together and makes sense of it. Very unique in the mall. There's lots of like data companies that do kind of SQL queries and things like that, but this technology is very different. And then they were one of the first ones into the visual analytics. So taking data and making beautiful visualizations out of it. And the company did really well.
People can understand it better,
Understand it better and inform decision making. And really, really good run. Went public early in the 2010s, and did really well. But then the world got interesting. There's big companies out there like Microsoft who are competing in Tableau, and so when they brought me in, it was really to kind of open the aperture and figure out like what else can we do with this company, and that's where we made a decision to broaden it from just a data and analytics company to full data platform. So we've done some really interesting acquisitions that sort of enable you to very quickly and easily get data out of any operational source into a platform. And it's really doing great in the market today. Our customers really like it.
How many employees today? And you're still public, correct? So you can talk to me about your sales?
No, we're not actually.
Oh, you went back private.
We went private. Yeah. So so I can't disclose financials. I can give you employees and stuff like that. So we have 2,400 employees now. The last sort of couple hundred coming from this acquisition we did in May of a company called Attunity, which was a really wonderful company based in Israel that had some of the newer technology we picked up.
Nice.
And we're all over the world. So we're in 30 countries. The center of gravity is sort of here now. We moved the headquarters to the U.S. So we're in Pennsylvania outside of Philly, but still a really great team of people in Sweden where we've got a lot of software developers still. And then other places around the world, including Singapore and India, where I was last week.
And were you involved in taking the company private again, or did that happen before you came on board?
That happened just before I came on board. So Orlando Bravo and Tomo Bravo actually took the company private and then asked me to join to kind of take it to the sort of the next phase.
Awesome. Good. Well, congratulations. Tell us a little bit about how your kind of leadership style has evolved, because you've gone from CIO, COO, CEO, pretty much different industries, right? Maybe some of the same customer base, some overlap there. And, have you had to change gears a lot, or have you found some key principles that have really kind of been to your mainstay success over that period of time?
Oh, it's interesting, Brent. So, big companies, small companies, different sort of challenges, right? So you can imagine big companies, you have to do a lot more working across the organizational structure, and there's also it's a little bit more bureaucratic. So one thing I needed to do, I went from big established 50-plus-year-old company, a lot of history, to a very sort of spry, not a startup. Meditated was by far from a startup. It was a very successful, doing fast growing company, but things moved a lot faster. So, I really enjoyed the transition and being able to make decisions fast and being able to move and just having a sort of close knit group that was running the company. Not necessarily better, but certainly different. But it also, when you're COO or CEO of a smaller company, you can really be out there. And so what I love is, I can, I just go visit each country, meet with the employees, get really close to it. And that is a lot of fun for a CEO. Like I don't get handled. Like I don't have a group of people telling me what to do, where to go. I get to go wherever I want to go. And usually when I go, I just go and I hang out with the teams and it's not scripted at all.
Mike, I recently heard it said that it's better to have your answers questioned than your questions answered. And as a CEO, can you remember a time recently, or perhaps it was in a previous job where you've been in a situation where, perhaps a subordinate kind of pulled you out on something with regards to, your statements and been challenged on stuff? And, how do you respond to that when that happens?
Look, you have to surround yourself with people who are going to challenge you. It is, probably tons of studies that show, CEOs who don't get challenged who are just looking for yes men above them. That's or around them. That's the death knell of a company. You got to
It
be
happens with
challenged.
heads of countries too, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, there's no, I don't even know what's going on in politics. That's all I'm going to say. So we're not going to talk that. But we look, even today, like we had a board meeting today, and before, we were prepping for it, and my CFO and I had a very healthy disagreement about how to position something. And
Good.
we've done 3 acquisitions. We're looking to do a few more, and there's huge. I could be excited about something, and my team will look at me like, "Are you crazy? This thing is a pig." And that's what that's the kind of talk that we have. Like,
awesome.
we're not. People don't look at me thinking that because I want to do something, everybody has to do it. They really do it, and I don't care if people challenge me in public. Obviously, as long as they do it respectfully. So never personal.
Well, you've got 2,400 employees. It sounds like what you said, 20, 30 countries. How many countries are you operating in?
We're in about 30 countries right now. 30 countries with people or employees rather, and we're over 100 countries with customers.
Fantastic. So, building a strong global company culture can be a real challenge. What are your thoughts about that? And, how do you do that as you travel around to your various offices, meet the people, and of course, meet your customers as well?
Yep. So you sort of led the witness on the answer. You got to be out there. We use every kind of technology imaginable to try to get the word out. So we have, collaboration tools. We do quarterly global webcasts where we actually video cast out. We set up a stage and we do those things. I blog all the time. We have like management sessions where we cascade things down, but really there's no substitute for getting on a plane and getting out there. And, I probably have 30, 35 people in India plus, but I've got a lot of customers there. So, you go and you see the people and you answer their questions, you have town halls, and then you just be very approachable. Everybody in the company knows they can email me or ask me a question anytime. And I always answer them no matter what.
What would you say is unusual or perhaps unique about Qlik's culture?
It's a really interesting blend of a sort of a go-go tech company and a very deep-rooted social responsibility company. Like it warms your heart, Brent. When it definitely, the Swedish thing definitely is a big influence because from day one they were very concerned about making sure that they weren't just bottom line focused. They were making the world a better place, and so a lot of what we do here is focused on that. We give our software in kind to organizations. We work with the United Nations on things like human trafficking, for example, looking for patterns in immigration data that could indicate human trafficking. We work on climate change. If people are willing to admit that's a thing, I'm again not getting political, but you know what, it is a thing. And we are working with an organization called C40 Cities, which is a bunch of cities that kind of got fed up with country governments not moving fast enough on this. So these cities are taking matters into their own hands, and we're helping them. We're helping them with analytics as ways to reduce their carbon footprints, and it's super exciting. And every employee, if you stop them in the hall, they'll ask them like, "What do you love about Qlik?" That is what you'll usually get. Is it's this mix of like it's fun to work here because of the tech, but it's also interesting because we care.
Yeah. Is the C40 Cities a nonprofit, Mike? I haven't heard of the organization before.
It is,
and is it global?
It's called C40, but it's actually like 100 now. 100
I was
cities.
Say it probably started with 40, and it's grown since then. And it's global cities, not just in the U.S.
It's total global.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, it's very exciting, and we got a lot of stories like that. But that is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, that's cool. Is the culture kind of more of a, focus on revenue, versus profit, or do you have a healthy balance of both? I've heard it said revenue is for vanity and profits for sanity, right? But what's kind of the culture along those lines?
Yeah, we're pretty grounded. So we are we're a healthy business. We are profitable, nicely profitable.
Nice.
We're growing. We're growing the top line. I'm not, by the way, not to be critical. I mean, there's plenty of companies that have done quite well, growing, revenue over. Qlik was that way for a while. It's like top line, grow, spend, and that's fine for a while. It does eventually have to stop at some point, though. You either get bought before you need to stop it, or something not less interesting happens.
Yeah.
But in Qlik's case, we're profitable. We have a really good balance of growth with profitability, and I kind of like it because when the markets go bad, when Wall Street starts to look at companies in kind of a downturn and the top line growth slows, it's nice to be able to fall back on profitability.
Absolutely. What do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in at Qlik?
It's for me, it's just about best athlete. It's who has the passion and the intelligence to get it done. I care less about domain expertise because I can teach that.
Sure.
But and then people who have can kind of tell the story that I like to hear, which is here's the challenges I face. Here's where I volunteered for difficult assignment, and here's how I succeeded. And then also when I failed, here's how I failed, and here's what I learned from it. Like those people are super invaluable. And again, I look for people who are kind of interesting, right? I'm not disparaging people who've been in one discipline all their life. I think there's a great need for that. But I do like to see people. It's like, hey, I worked in sales and then marketing, and then I rotated out into like a general management assignment, and now I'm back into marketing. Those people are really interesting to me.
Do you use those same metrics and qualifications as you promote people within the organization?
It's heavily weighted. So people who have rounded experience, that's a factor. It's not the only factor. People can get promoted inside of a discipline for doing well, taking on more responsibility. So it's not an or, it's a kind of an and in terms of criteria. But look, it's our job as leaders and managers to get people that experience. We always tell people they own their own career path, and they always got to be looking out for it. But the reality is, me and my team, we spend some time going through the organization, doing development plans for people, and making sure that they can rotate between different jobs.
Do you get involved in a lot of the interviewing and hiring and promotion decisions?
Promotions, for sure. Anything sort of director and above here. We have a very defined process of conversation. So it's not a very bureaucratic process, but it is a very open process. So the leaders across my team will weigh in, particularly on when we want to do like vice president promotions, and it's fully vetted, and everybody gets heard. And then I get involved in some of them, interviewing. Same thing. People who report directly to me or one of my directs, I certainly will talk to. And then sometimes if someone will just ask me, hey, Mike, can you chat with this person because
a couple levels down.
But,
yeah. And then in those situations where maybe you only have 5, 10, or 15 minutes, what do you focus in on? What are some of those questions you'll ask?
Cultural fit. It's all, I'm going to assume my team did a really good job of checking to make sure they, knew how to code.
Qualifications are right. Yeah.
Knew what corporate marketing was. So then it becomes, okay, talk to me about how your style, how you work across the organization. And look, we don't live on org chart authority here, right? Your currency is how other people perceive you as being collaborative and helpful to them, and how you can help them succeed. So you have to be able to bring that currency to the table, because people, honestly, they don't care where you are in the org chart here. It's really about, can you collaborate? So I just test for that.
Well, Mike, you've been very generous with your time, and we're almost out of it. But we've got one last question we ask all our guests. And, what's the career and life advice you'd give to someone that's got their eyes on their own corner office someday?
Go for the hard assignments. Don't play it safe.
Raise your hand.
It's scary
and volunteer.
Sometimes. People, when I took that, I remember that ERP project that thing was going south in a big way, and people told me that was it for me. Your career was over, and I was crazy to take it on. And with a lot of help, I turned it around. And then the last thing I'll say, which is my favorite story of all time, is, when I was a CIO, Chief Information Officer, which, the joke around that job was, it stands for career is over, not Chief Information Officer.
I had not heard that one before.
Yeah, that's great. That was the joke us CIOs have in our circles.
Right.
But it's at a CIO conference. They had a bunch of headhunters, Korn Ferry, a couple others. And, I raised my hand, asked a question, how does a CIO become CEO? And they all of them, without fail, all 4 of them said, you can't. It doesn't happen. No board wants a CIO as a CEO. Give it up. And I proved them wrong. Here I am.
That was an inspiration, it sounds like.
We'll finish this where I started, which is I'm from the Bronx.
Exactly. Don't tell me no.
That's okay.
Mike Capone, CEO and President of Qlik. Thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Pleasure, Brant. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.